One, two, one, two, one, two. Dan's live in the radio house. We are having some weird feedback loop between OBS and YouTube. We'll double check that now. One more check. One, two, one, two. Hello, hello. Gonna check one more time for feedback. Let it running. One, two, one, two, one, two.
News Bites. Don't forget. You're listening to
Fox Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Fox Talk Radio. I'm Liv and I'm joined by Archie.
Here are today's headlines.
Shortages of NHS dentists in Cornwall have caused public outrage, with long waiting lists and savage cuts.
And I can't get anything, we're having to pay private.
Ex-head teacher of Red Roof School, Craig Martin, talks us through the stressful and traumatic effects of Ofsted inspections and if the system should be reviewed.
Humza Yousaf has been narrowly elected as the new Scottish National Party leader, restarting the conversation about their young voting age.
I like Humza Yousaf's promise to continue to build the case for independence.
Have you got a lovely lady, fabulous fella or precious puppy? Falmouth's alternative to Crufts comes to the Boathouse this Saturday. Cornwall's four-legged friends have been invited to the charity event for Last Chance Hotel.
And it's just an opportunity for local dog owners to come and have some fun.
For extra news bites, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Fox Talk Radio.
First up, we look at Cornwall's dental crisis. Can you imagine waiting 3 years for a dentist appointment? That's how long some members of the public in Falmouth have been waiting to get a check-up with the NHS. Our reporter Callum Walker has been looking into the matter for us. So what can you tell us about it, Callum?
Yeah, so this is all due to increasing pressures on the industry and a lack of qualified dentists coming in. Many people are being affected by extreme wait times, and some have even stopped going, and some have also performed surgeries on themselves. Healthcare provider Bupa have announced cuts to their own dental service today. 85 dental surgeries that cover both the NHS and private practices are being closed across the UK, bringing the total surgeries down from 350 to 365. Only 40% of adults in the South West saw a dentist in 2021. A third of all children in Cornwall saw a dentist in the same year, while there are also more dentists leaving the NHS than joining. I've been out today to talk to members of the public in Falmouth to see what they thought about the crisis.
I think it's absolutely dreadful. The government needs to pull their finger out.
The condition of natural health dentists around here is really bad because most dentists are now cutting back on the NHS service.
Right.
Which means that people who either want to try and find a dentist or the people who are already on a list are getting dropped off as well. Some years ago, it used to be very good down here.
Yeah.
Lots of dentists like coming down, enjoying the ambience of Falmouth and the Cornwall and the serving, and it was very easy. But for the last 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, we'll factor in buy-to-let, Airbnb, and holiday homes, and the dentists got nowhere they can afford to live.
What do you think about the crisis at the moment? There's all shortage of dentists, especially in Cornwall.
Yeah, it's terrible. Terrible. And I think somebody should be able to sue the NHS because for years I've paid NHS and I can't get anything. We're having to pay private.
It's crap, isn't it? I don't understand it.
Yeah, and I think we moved here about 5 years ago,
Right.
and they said the waiting list was about 2 years. No sign. Yeah, so dentists just rubbish.
So there's a crisis at the moment with the dentist shortage. What do you think of it?
Oh, I think it's very sad because they've been running for so long and a lot of people just cannot afford private dentists.
There's a lot of people on the waiting list at the moment.
Well, my partner hasn't seen an NHS dentist for 4 years.
Right.
I can't see an NHS dentist because as long as it's something crucial, and it's really like life-threatening, they'll see you. But I can't get any health checks there, no checkups at all. I have to go. I am now with a private dentist. I have done for quite a few years. They haven't been able to see me.
People are on waiting lists for 2-3 years around here, which is
2-3 years and the rest.
yeah, it's awful.
I know young families can't even get it.
Right.
Young kids can't even get NHS. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
And
terrible.
the cost of it is crippling for anybody.
Yeah.
So,
People go private, but I mean it's terribly expensive.
well,
isn't it?
private is for rich people, I think,
Yeah, true, yeah.
and not just for the rest of us. But no, it'll always be the same. I don't think it'll ever change anyway,
Right.
unfortunately. There you go. What can you do?
As of this week, Scotland has a new First Minister. Humza Yousaf has taken over Nicola Sturgeon's role, which he held for an impressive 8 years before resigning. With most of the country wondering what the future of Scotland will look like under a new leadership, particularly with Scottish independence, Emma spoke to Hilary Brown, a researcher and member of the SNP, to find out her predictions for Scotland independence, the new party leader and the minimum voting age.
I therefore declare Humza Yousaf duly elected as the Scottish National Party leader.
Hilary Brown used to be a researcher for Nicola Sturgeon and is hopeful for change in Scotland under the leadership of Humza Yousaf. Specifically, she is hopeful for another Scottish independence referendum.
And I think inevitably there will be one. It's all about timing, really, isn't it? Because we can't have one until whoever is in 10 Downing Street says we can. And I think the only way for us to change the mind of 10 Downing Street is just to make it impossible for them to say no by having such support for independence itself and or at least for a referendum.
In 2014, the voting age for the independence referendum was lowered to 16. Hilary has teenage children and would like to see this happen again.
16-year-olds are well and truly old enough to make that decision. They also, were out the European Union courtesy of older people, and Scotland voted very much in favour of staying in the European Union, but all young people are losing out on Erasmus schemes and, travel and all sorts of stuff that we used to enjoy as members of the EU. And I think not just my children, but loads of young people want that again. And I don't really see how we get that for Scotland without independence and rejoining the EU.
As a member of SNP, Hilary herself voted for Humza Yousaf to become Scotland's First Minister.
I think he's got a very difficult job to do. I like Humza Yousaf's promise to continue with as much wealth redistribution as possible, to tackle Scotland's appalling poverty stats, to continue to build the case for independence, to continue to fight and funding into climate emergency projects, which are really the most important thing of all at this stage.
With hopes for a new Scottish independence referendum, all eyes are on Yousaf to see if the future of Scotland will be independent.
I know that collectively we will continue to work hard as part of Team SNP.
So what do you think about lowering the voting age in referendums? Do you think 16-year-olds are mature enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll encourage younger people to get into politics, which I think is really important.
Definitely. And in some news that's been breaking in the last few minutes, the Scottish Parliament's public gallery has had to be cleared during the new First Minister's debut session. Climate protesters kept interrupting Humza Yousaf, and after the 5th time, the presiding officer ordered them to be removed.
And later in the programme, at least there's an excuse to take your dog to the pub. We find out more about Falmouth's very own version of Crufts.
If you know someone who drives in Cornwall, you'll no doubt have heard the difficulties of finding a place to park, pricey tickets, or worse, being charged incorrectly. With the tourist season on the horizon and thousands of cars expected to flood the roads, our reporter Tom Barwell-Best went out to ask the public how they feel about parking in Cornwall.
Falmouth in particular, it's a bit of a problem. Particularly, they're thinking about moving the bollards, and they're thinking about using the middle car park for whatever else. And frankly, where are they going to park the cars? They don't seem to be coming up with any ideas as to where the cars are going to park once they've closed the car park down. That's Falmouth. I don't know about anywhere else.
Well, being a fisherman, I do find it quite difficult to park in some places around the Cornwall area, particularly the Myler and Flushing areas. It does get filled up quite a bit with our visitors. Obviously, we need them to have the income for Cornwall, but it would be nice to have some free parking in Myler.
It's too expensive. That's all I've got to say, really. It irritates me that you have to pay for it, especially in the summer.
Ultra expensive from my experience. Town car parks or village car parks that did belong to that local area, and now they're run by companies where if you don't put the ticket in correctly, automatic £100 fine. Don't like that.
It's becoming rather expensive, I think, and probably puts off people using the local facilities, local towns. I don't use it a great deal, to be honest with you, but yeah, it doesn't help as far as reviving town centres, as far as I can see.
It's the car parks around the town centres that's a problem, and on the small roads where people can't get by and stuff. But it's a lot of it's a multiple home is the problem. They've got one house with 6 cars in it, and it's just not on really. It's not.
You can't park there, Dave.
As someone that drives around Falmouth, how have you found parking?
Gosh, parking in Falmouth is a nightmare, especially in like the main car parks and stuff in summer. They're always just so full, and like they said in the clips, it's just so expensive. It doesn't almost feel worth it. But I have become a bit of a pro at parallel parking on all the little side streets now.
Lots of practice.
Always, I'm a bit of a superhero.
You're listening to Fox Talk Radio, local news from the heart of Cornwall.
Today's national and international news. King Charles has pledged to strengthen connections between the UK and Germany at a state banquet in Berlin.
I have been struck by the warmth of the friendship between our nations.
Pope Francis is set to spend the next few days in hospital for treatment regarding a respiratory infection, says the Vatican. The government will publish its revised strategy for achieving the target of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And tonight in the Women's Champions League, Chelsea take on Lyon in a second-leg quarter-final clash, with Emma Hayes' team looking to hold on to a narrow 1-0 lead on aggregate.
Seek the opportunity that's there in front of us, and I know the entire dressing room is very much looking forward to it.
Fox Talk Radio.
So Liv, do you remember Ofsted visiting your school?
Oh gosh, yeah. We'd always have about a week before where the teachers would train us on how to behave again and bribe us with chocolate and stuff, reminding us that there'd just be a stranger in the back of the classroom and that we had to be all perfectly presented and very polite and putting our hands up.
There was always a bribe, box of chocolates or something, hand out little sweets. Emily Rubin has been looking at the pressures of Ofsted and whether the inspection process needs to change.
In January of this year, head teacher at a Reading primary school, Ruth Perry, took her own life after receiving the lowest Ofsted rating, inadequate. Craig Martin was a head teacher at Redruth School for 12 years. I chatted to him about Ofsted.
Most heads and most schools realise they're in a cycle, and the cycle at the moment is they have to inspect every school within a 5-year period now. The sad bit about Ruth Perry's was, of course, they hadn't inspected outstanding schools for years because Michael Gove made a decision in 2012 to say that they didn't need inspecting. And the reason, without being too political around that, was because it was also timing with the introduction of mass academisation. So you had schools, and they still exist in Cornwall, and they still exist, it's easy to find out, that hadn't been inspected for an enormous amount of time. And so consequently, the perception is that you're sitting on an outstanding school, whereas the reality is you're probably not.
Ofsted's inspections put a lot of pressure on head teachers and the rest of the staff working at schools.
The problem is that, some heads spend all their time preparing for Ofsted, and of course that puts a lot of pressure on everyone involved in the organisation. It's not a good idea to run a school on Ofsted because Ofsted frameworks change, and actually what doesn't change is just doing a good job in education in schools. I think you've got to run your school according to what's best for children. It is traumatic, and the 2 days when you've got 5 or 6 people in your school, if it's a big school like I ran in the last one, I think the big pressure, the eyes of the community will judge you based on that Ofsted grading. That's the bit that you carry. That's the burden you carry for being a head.
I asked Craig whether he thought the current inspection system needed to be reviewed.
I've never been a great fan of the sort of 1 or 2 word judgments because I think it's the only thing in some cases a lot of parents look at. I do think there's got to be some form of assessment and inspection. I'm totally in favour of that. But I do think it should be graduated. In other words, it should spell out what needs to be done. It's easy to criticise, but I think coming up with a solution isn't straightforward. Unfortunately, people like to know if it's a good service or not.
Many have spoken up in light of Perry's death, and it has led many to re-evaluate Ofsted's inspection process.
For extra news bites, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Fox Talk Radio.
Next up, Naomi talks about Amata, the Academy of Music and Theatre Arts, and their recent and current shows.
The Academy of Music and Theatre Arts, Amata for short, is based on the Penryn campus of Falmouth University. Hidden away from most students, plays, shows and performances are held here for the students to showcase their skills they have learnt from their studies. I went to the Amata building last Wednesday to watch the show Pavilion. It was based in a small town in a forgotten corner of Wales, full of big personalities and every one of them out for their final Friday night disco at the Pavilion. Like the local school and public library is about to be shut down. I personally thought the show was amazing. To see students act out fight scenes and keep a Welsh accent throughout the entire performance shows skill. Tonight, a show called Pornography is to be performed, but don't let the name fool you. It focuses on a fractured and insecure Britain. We live in a pornographic time, says the playwright Simon Stevens. It was written in context to the 7/7 London bombings and the 2012 Olympics. The Amata building offers free tickets to students' plays, giving the performers an audience to show their hard work to. Head over to the website amata.org.uk.
Did you know about the Amata building in Penryn?
Not till today. Never heard of it. But now hearing about it, I'm very much interested to go up there.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to grab some of the shows before I graduate and see them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they have some talented people up there.
Sounds like it.
You're listening to Fox Talk Radio, local news from the heart of Cornwall.
We have all heard of Crufts. Perhaps you know it as the world's greatest dog show. Well, what if we told you there was a new kid in town? Falmouth pub, the Boathouse, will be hosting Scruffs this Saturday, a show for dogs of all shapes and sizes in aid of charity, the Last Chance Hotel. We sent Tavy Kerry to find out more.
With Scruffs just around the corner, our four-legged friends are raring to go. This morning, I caught up with Eve. She filled me in on why the Boathouse has decided to host such a awesome event.
My name is Eve and I coordinate the events for the Boathouse. As a dog-friendly pub, we wanted to bring the community together in aid of a local charity called the Last Chance Hotel.
The Last Chance Hotel is a registered charity based in Cornwall. They work hard to rescue, rehabilitate and rehome abused and neglected animals.
We're running a dog show from 12 till 4:30 on Saturday, and it's just an opportunity for local dog owners to come and have some fun.
Like all good dog competitions, Scruffs will have a variety of categories. There's something to suit every pooch.
Dog most like owner, loveliest lady, most fabulous fella, best agility, musical sit, and best trick. We have a lovely lady called Libby who used to work with us, and she's a dog walker. Her company's called Wild Ones, and basically we've been thinking about it for a while. We used to do it years ago, and it was a great way to bring people together and kind of offer something a bit different in Falmouth as well. And then Libby told us about the Last Chance Hotel, which we thought would be a great charity to raise money for.
Sat at home with a talented pup? Why not get involved?
Either just call the pub or pop in. All payments for the classes will be taken on the day. So, of course, just feel free to turn up as well.
A sound artist who was told as a child he would go blind has been using his unique sense of sound to help others. Chloe Ethorne met him to discuss his work with the NHS and RNLI here in Cornwall.
Could you tell me a bit about your brilliant work with the RNLI and Echo Points?
The RNLI had like an open call, and it was called Design Out Drowning. And one of the targets that they wanted artists to look at is coastal mental health and how coastal mental health has changed and the impacts that it has on its community. Unfortunately, there is quite bad coastal mental health in Cornwall, and some of that mental health leads to self-harming and suicide. With the RNLI, we had a very in-depth conversation about my idea, which is called Echo Point, creating a sonic safe space or a sound piece that just allows to have some resilience or some thought time in a vulnerable process. Echo Point has 3 sound triggers, and the sound triggers allow you to breathe in, hold your breath and breathe out. Because there's something really magical, isn't there, about birdsong? One of the things that always come up in Echo Point sessions when we talk about sounds which are positive for people birdsong always comes up. We tried it and tested it, and then it started being implemented in other places. So prisons and schools use it now.
Brilliant. I think there should be echo points everywhere. It is so important, that power of being able to sit with your breath.
Working in a hospice at the time with people who had 2 or 3 weeks to live, and creating soundscapes of their memories, interviewing them with this device that we created called a memory atlas. They would choose the memories they wanted to revisit. It sits in between This Is Your Life and Desert Island Discs, but instead of listening to music, they would listen to the memory. So we would build the sonicscape, because when they're listening back to those sounds, they weren't in the hospice anymore. They were 21 and they're working at a radar station in Plymouth, or on the back of a moped when they're 15 with their first boyfriend. And it was a really powerful thing to watch, and just seeing that the experience of this and working with sound and seeing the power of sound, whether it's in hospices or in prisons, becomes a different environment because of the changing of how a person perceives sound in that situation.
God, what an inspiring man. I love the idea of the soundscapes. I imagine mine would probably sound quite a bit like the sea and the birds back home where I used to live. But that's all we've got for today, and thanks for listening to Fox Talk Radio. I've been Liv Marsden.
And I'm Archie Stevens. To play us out is The Three Stooges by Beans on Toast.
King Charles is a stooge for the World Economic Forum. He's been a member for years, and we have reason to believe that he will do their bidding for them. They've made their intentions perfectly clear. They want our land, they want our houses, they want our data and our food supply. They've got it all mapped out. There's no one there to stop them. They've got no reason to lie. We will own nothing, we will be happy, or so the saying goes. But more than likely, they will take everything, and we will all be left out in the cold, singing angry songs for the culture war. But left or right, it don't matter anymore. We will find common ground in the bills we can't afford, and we'll know what's what when our homes get cold. Oh, something's gotta give. Something's gotta give. The first Prime Minister was a stooge for the energy companies, the oligarchs and think tanks and rich economists, soon replaced by a tax-dodging millionaire. Just another stooge for the WEF, the cost of living. The next recession, baby, the bubble's gonna burst. And when it does, who do you reckon is gonna get the worst? We will have nothing, we will be happy. Surely we're not falling for this crap. And if they keep taking more, then it won't take long until we start taking it back. Me, I'm a dreamer, I just can't help it. I'm always dreaming up a better world, run by people who volunteer for the role. Don't do it for the money, do it for the love.
Take all the money out of politics.
Falmouth is getting sexy tonight as a new event piques the interest of locals. Get Your Buzz On promises a night of bingo, bevs and boogieing to attendees who may be leaving with prizes ranging from local restaurant vouchers to sex toys.
Let's do that. Let's do a bingo. where you can win sex toys, and it really breaks that taboo. It's like really like in your face, but in a really fun way. So you can win sex toys. Yeah, they are within the prizes. You can also win Domino's vouchers, Hubbox vouchers. We've got like a clitoral stimulator, we've got a dildo, we've got like one of those rabbit things, but we've also got like bubble guns and Phoenix Cinema tickets. We've got it all. We are playing sexy, cheesy tunes. We're thinking a lot of Britney Spears, bit of Madonna. They're going to be kind of sex themed.
All of this excitement is in the hopes to raise money for Brooke, a local sexual health charity that offer free sexual health advice to under 25s in an inclusive and safe way.
They're a really approachable charity, and I really think they're making a massive difference within the local community. When you're in school, you don't really get taught much about sex. It's like a taboo, so they don't get taught enough about sex and how to have it in a positive, safe and healthy way. And you don't get taught the basics, like how to look after yourself, how to look after others, and where to go if you need help.
A past service user of Brooke exaggerated the importance of the work that the charity do. I've heard that you've used Brooke Sexual Health Charity before. How was your experience using it?
It was a very good experience because as a young person using it, it was nice to have an accessible service that available to you if you didn't want to speak to like family or friends or something, or didn't feel comfortable using those people.
So if you're feeling saucy in the aid of raising money for a charity doing great work for local young people, get a £4 ticket and head down to Grapes for 7 p.m. tonight.
And that was just a little extra piece for you by Amy Coleman. Apologies for the delay and for any language of a sexual nature throughout the piece. Thanks again, I've been Archie and this has been Fox Talk Radio.